And give me just a moment here. Getting things ready. And presto. Good afternoon. I know it's I gotta warn you, I'm kind of random. And yes, these are live broadcasts, but that's just because it's easier. I'm not really expecting anyone to show up in the chat. What we're going to be discussing today, after you hit the like and subscribe button and I get a fuzz butt running up my shoulder, is we're going to be discussing dead genres of games. And by that I mean genres for tabletop role-playing games that either never really had a successful game or only had one, maybe two. And there's really only two major dead genres I can think of. Do you mind? The first dead genre, well, pardon him, he's yeah. Anyway, the first dead genre, let me begin by saying, get him down. No. You need to be down on the floor so you're not interrupting the show. Go. Shoot. Anyway, the first dead genre. In the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide, in the first edition AD&D, there were rules on how to translate back and forth between two games and D&D. The first one was Gamma World. Gamma World was very well known. I know a lot of people that played it. I know people that played it during the interregnum. Yes, there was a period where there was no edition of Gamma World. And I know people who played it in the reboot recently. Relatively recently. The other game with translation rules was Boot Hill. As you can tell by that title, it was a game, role-playing game, about the Wild West. By the time I started playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, remember, as I said, these rules were in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Game Master's Guide. By the time I started playing, I'm pretty certain it was already dead. I have never seen a copy of Boot Hill on display for sale at any local game shop. I do not remember ever seeing any articles for Boot Hill in Dragon Magazine. It's kind of a good metric for if a TSR game is still around or not. If they suddenly stop making articles for it in Dragon, it's probably a defunct game by now. Anyway, I never saw them. I'm not saying there weren't any. In fact, I'm almost certain there were. I just don't remember any. And I don't believe there were any from the time I started playing D&D on. Now, there was a second Wild West RPG that I can think of. And it was actually more of a Wild West crossed with fantasy. And that was Deadlands. Deadlands was an interesting game. It had a major flaw, in my opinion, in the system. And that's that when a spellcaster cast his spell, he played a hand of poker. Brilliant for the purposes of keeping the flavor and the theme of the game. Not so brilliant when it comes to maintaining the flow and rhythm of the game, because everything's slammed to a halt so that the spellcaster can try and figure out what hand of cards he wants to make with the cards he's got. You get more powerful, more skilled, or you're casting an easier spell, you get more cards to choose from to make your poker hand. Yeah, just make a decision. Go with a pair of twos if you have to. We just need to get it cast. That kind of thing. If I'm not mistaken, Deadlands actually recently got a reboot itself. I do not know how well it did. I never saw the books in my local game shops. Not saying they weren't there, I'm saying I never saw them. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mention now that there's probably a GURPS supplement for the Wild West. We're not going to include GURPS. If we include GURPS, it's... GURPS was the game. Everything else was a supplement for it. And that included things as utterly bizarre that I don't think we'll ever see anywhere else as goblins in pseudo-Victorian England. Not invading England, but as the people living in pseudo-Victorian England. Goblins. Entertaining book. I don't think I would ever play that game. But it's a supplement for the main rule set, GURPS. So it doesn't count, because I know a lot of people that will use those GURPS supplements for ideas for other games. Especially things like, there's a superhero supplement. And I know someone who went and took the characters from that superhero supplement and brought them into Champions, a game that's a bit better suited for it. Anyway, moving on to the next genre. This one had a little bit more of a successful set of games behind it, but even so, the genre itself is mostly stillborn. First game was Top Secret. Unlike Deadlands 2 or the original Boot Hill, I did see Top Secret in my local game stores. I did see them get purchased. I did see articles in Dragon Magazine. Top Secret's another TSR product. The other major game that I can think of that would fit the spy genre would be Ninjas and Super Spies by Palladium, who considered themselves to be TSR's self-appointed arch-enemy. Now, Ninjas and Super Spies, being part of the Palladium system, actually had an issue of its own, and that's people didn't so much play it on its own merits as much as they used it as a supplement for Rifts and other Palladium games. Dozens of martial arts styles, introducing Chi into the world after the bomb. Yeah, of course. So, Super Spies and Wild West. What do they have in common that might explain why they're pretty much dead game genres? Well, most gamers, up to and possibly including recently, with the Matt Mercer effect, we're seeing a lot of non-gamers becoming gamers, are geeks. Nerds. I freely admit to being both. You can tell the difference by asking, may the Force. The geek says, be with you. The nerd says, be equal to mass times acceleration. Anyway, what genres do geeks and nerds like? Fantasy, science fiction, superhero, horror, and crossovers therein. Almost every major successful game falls into one of these 5 categories. Shadowrun is fantasy and science fiction, cyberpunk to be exact. Dungeons & Dragons fantasy, cyberpunk, Mechton, Gamma World, science fiction, Werewolf, Call of Cthulhu, horror, Champions, Blood of Heroes, Silver Age Sentinels, superhero. Wild West and Super Spies never really were geek genres. So, if we consider that, it's kind of obvious why those genres are dead genres. I'd like to thank you for watching. As I said before, don't forget the whole like, subscribe, bell icon, the usual. And I will see you all later. Goodbye.